Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today, we are looking at the latest album from the Ocean entitled Phanerozoic 2. But before we sink our teeth directly into that particularly tasty prog metal meal, I'd like to tell you all about a very special and exciting live stream I will be hosting here on the Metal Meltdown this Friday, September 25th. By popular demand, I will be hosting a live Super Mario 64 drinking game with my good friend Moose, the host of Moving Mouths, and a regular guest here on the Metal Meltdown. We're gonna drink, we're gonna shoot the shit, we're gonna party, and we're gonna have a lot of goddamn fun. At least I intend to have a lot of goddamn fun. And if you would also like to partake in said goddamn fun, may I recommend joining us again Friday, September 25th, approximately 3 p.m. PST, 6 p.m. EST. Times are subject to change, to be honest with you. I haven't quite nailed this down because guess what? I have a life outside of this channel. Crazy, right? So once again, live Super Mario 64 drinking game this Friday. Be there or be fucking square. This German progressive metal band has been kicking around for just under 20 years now, and in that time span, they have put out some of the most complex, immersive, and ambitious material in the entire genre, including their 2013 record Pelagial, which I would legitimately consider to be a true masterpiece, not just of prog metal, but in general. With all this in mind, I've been extremely excited for Phanerozoic 2, which isn't just the band's 7th studio album, but it is also the sequel to Phanerozoic 1, released in 2018. The closing chapter in an extremely ambitious concept album, Duology, which sees the band reflecting on the history of human and animal evolution and biology through the sonic template of progressive sludge and post-metal. And while I have been concerned that the overall size of this project would prove to be extremely overwhelming, especially when you factor in the instrumental companion pieces to this record, and the fact that this is technically kind of a spiritual successor to another Ocean record, Precambrian, ultimately, despite that, I actually found this to be a very immediate and, dare I say, somewhat accessible record by prog metal standards. There's a genuine elegance and sense of mystery to the album's incredibly ambient, shape-shifting opening number, Triassic, that reels you in so quickly without quite hitting you over the head with boatloads of information. It almost feels like a really tense intellectual thriller at first, like you're in a movie theater on the edge of your seat. Yes, there's complexity, but it's not obnoxious artsy-fartsy complexity. Complexity comes in the forms of tribal drums and some very somber, ambient melodies twisting in and out of the forefront of the sound, contrasting with some very blunt and abrasive walls of thick, earthy sludge. Put very simply, Triassic succeeds at opening the album on a very explosive and informative note, making the transitions into the album's bigger and more progressive cuts all the more smooth and seamless. And with that in mind, from here on, Phanerozoic 2 is an extremely exciting prog metal roller coaster, with all the ups, downs, and loop-de-loops that you would expect of said prog metal roller coaster. Take, for instance, the planet-sized walls of riffs on the track Paleocene. It's so unbelievably heavy and powerful, as if you are literally being crushed by the earth itself. Or the track Miocene-Pliocene, which builds on some very slow, ominous, and smoky passages contrasted with some very aggressive and throaty lead vocals, almost hearkening to the kind of intensity I would expect from a band like Cult of Luna. And then there's Jurassic Cretaceous, a 13-minute epic with so many different twists and turns that it could probably stand on its own as an individual release. It continuously builds on the initial suspense of Triassic and throws in bigger riffs, weirder passages, and some fantastic guest vocals from Katatonia's Jonas Rensk, whose soft and gothic swoons add a much-needed beauty to contrast the monolithic and oppressive progressive sludge. I'm especially fascinated by the actual concept itself and how the band takes inspiration from paleontology and ancient history and biology, and using metaphors to apply it to our current environmental and political climate. Even saying quite bluntly on Jurassic Cretaceous, "We are just like reptiles, giant rulers of the world, within the blink of an eye, wiped off the face of the earth." I gotta say, listening to this album back to back with Phanerozoic 1 was an incredible experience as well. Almost cinematic, like it's prog metal's answer to Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Now, I will admit that this album is maybe at times a little bit too dense and complicated for its own good. Like, this is not a record you're going to be able to casually listen to, especially not if you intend on listening to this alongside Phanerozoic 1 and really absorbing everything happening conceptually throughout both albums. But that being said, if you already know who The Ocean are, then on some level you must already be aware of this and even prepared for it. And even if you don't, I still think the opening track Triassic does a very good job at explaining everything you can expect to find across the record in a relatively cohesive and compact number. I feel comfortable giving this a very enthusiastic 4 out of 5. This is a great record, with great performances, great production value, great songwriting, all working together side by side to create a really great, one-of-a-kind prog metal experience. The Ocean fans will love it, prog metal nerds will love it. I'm not really sure how more novice and casual listeners will feel about this album, but I would encourage you to check it out nonetheless. That being said, if you are literally brand new to this band, I wouldn't recommend starting off with this particular project. I'd actually still recommend starting off with Pelagial. Not just because Pelagial is frankly still my favorite album from The Ocean, but also because it is probably a lot easier to get into than the absolutely massive sonic universe that The Ocean have constructed here. But not impossible. Not impossible one bit, particularly if you listen to Triassic and you like what you hear. So, Phanerozoic 2. It's big, it's weird, it's ambitious, it's heavy as holy hell, and it's a must-listen for anyone who considers themselves a prog metal connoisseur in 2020. 4 to 5, a fucking great record. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right there so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.